Hi, it's Alice, and I'm here to give you a walkthrough of the offer process. So if you're my client, it's probably because I'm giving you information up front, or we're writing an offer, or you're finding this on YouTube and it's just a free resource for you. So I have a little slideshow that I will open up, and we'll just have a quick look at what happens when you write an offer and what the buyers and sellers can do. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Let's have a look. So what is an offer? An offer in real estate is a formal proposal from a buyer to purchase a property at a specified price and under certain conditions. It includes details like the price, of course, desired closing date, and any contingencies. So this is known as the contract of purchase and sale. If you are my clients, you would have likely received this already in your sample documents. So if you see the contract of purchase and sale, that's what we're going to be filling out. And if you don't have it and you have a realtor, just ask them for a draft or, a blank one so you can read it over. The main reason I suggest this is because when you're writing offers, if you have never looked at the contract, and you're doing it right when you need to submit an offer, and perhaps you're under the gun to get the offer submitted at the same time as somebody else, or you're competing, you might not have time to read it all. And I always want people to know what they're signing. So, okay, so how are offers submitted? So essentially, the long and short of it is your agent will do a lot of work and then you will review that work. But the process goes, so you view a property, you want to write an offer, and what your agent will do if you express interest in writing an offer is they will go review comparable properties. So we typically review anything that's within a reasonable time frame. Like if there's not a lot of properties that you can compare to, we're going to get whatever we can. But typically, like within the past couple months, we'll find recent sales and listings, and we will weigh the parallels between those properties and see, is the one you're interested in overpriced or is it underpriced? Those types of things. So that's how we determine what we can offer price-wise. So then we will discuss your terms and contingencies. Typically, there's a lot of boilerplate kind of terms that I add into contracts. So I will recommend those to most people just to offer the most amount of protection, but also the subject. So say, for example, if you need subject to financing and inspection, we'll discuss all that. And sometimes you go in unconditional. If you're going into a bidding war, then that will change things as well. So again, these terms include the price and the deposit. The deposit, just so you know, typically it's payable after you remove all subjects. So you know that the purchase is going to go through. And in general, you're looking at about 3 to 5% of the purchase price. And that does count towards your down payment, just so you know. Closing and possession dates. So we discussed the dates that work for you. I typically call a listing agent to see what the seller needs. And if we can accommodate that, that improves your negotiation stance. So we will put the dates in the contract as well, and do our best to get you what you want. And then the subject tos. So that's, do you want an inspection? Do you need a financing approval? Do you need to verify the insurance? The list can go on forever. So that's really, it's dependent on the property and what you would like to do and how competitive the situation is. So there's a lot of variables there, but we will discuss that as well. And I will give you my best recommendations. Ultimately, as the buyer, you are the boss. So if you don't want to have subjects, you don't have to. But I just tend to want to protect my clients, as most agents do. So then the agent, me, will write your offer. So in BC especially, and across Canada, we have standard contracts that we use. For instance, in Victoria, we have ones that are specific to the Victoria Real Estate Board, and Up Island has their own kind of little altered contracts. But we have lawyers write these contracts, and they're not templates, like they do change, but they're standardized. So you know that if I'm writing a contract, I'm suggesting the terms and conditions, but I'm not sitting there writing out the full pages and pages of boilerplate clauses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not just going willy-nilly. Nobody is. So yeah, very good lawyers write that stuff. So after I write the offer and after our discussions, I'll put it into the contract and then I send it to you. And what I want you to do is read through it as slowly as possible and understand everything that you can. Sometimes you might be really under the gun to submit an offer, and that's why pre-reading the boilerplate contract is a really, really good idea. And so you're just looking over the terms that we add in. So anyways, if you're happy with the contract, then I will send you a DocuSign to digitally sign that contract. If you want changes, that's also when we would address that as well. And then once the offer is signed, I will submit it to the listing agent. And typically I email it over and then I call or text if they don't answer and make sure that they get that and that I get a confirmation that they've received it and everybody is in the know on the fact that you've sent an offer, which is great. Okay, so let's move on. So what's next? Once the offer is in the hands of the seller, and I will just state this, if you submit an offer, the listing agent must send it to the seller. Okay, so even if you're lowballing, because that happens, right? We all do that. They have to send it. So even if the agent doesn't like the fact that you're not offering full price, or they say, oh, the seller won't accept it, they have to at least present it. Okay, so just know we're never not going to have it in front of the seller. They can shoot it down right away, but their agent must show it to them. So while your offer is active, and what I mean by active is in the contract, there is a section where you leave the offer open until. So say if you're writing an offer on a Monday, you might leave it open until Tuesday at the same time. So like leave it open for 24 hours. But that could be, I've had offers open for 2 hours in a bidding war situation, or you can leave them open for a week. So it really depends how long you leave it. But again, that's all something to discuss, but that is the time that the seller has to respond. So while the seller has that window, that is while your offer is active. Okay. So the seller can choose to accept your offer. And if they accept the offer, it means that they're not changing anything. They're happy with the terms and the price and all that, and the dates work. And so they will just initial in the seller sections and signatures wherever they need to as well. So that is ideal and it's great, but it doesn't always happen that way. So sometimes they will send you a counter offer. Not sometimes, a lot of times they will. And basically the counter offer is them coming in and crossing out terms or conditions that don't work for them to try and see if they can find a way to agree with you. So like the dates, a lot of times they'll cross out dates and put what they need. And so if they do that, or they cross out the price and put a new price, they'll initial next to the changes and then the agent will send it back to us. And then they can just straight up decline your offer. They can just say, no, we don't want to work with you. Or they can let it expire. Sometimes sellers aren't available if you just leave it open for 2 hours or 4 hours. People are at work and they can't respond. So offers can expire. And if they do expire, you have to rewrite an offer if you want to try again because you can't revive a dead offer. So that's kind of why you don't want to leave it too short because it's a pain in the butt. But yeah, if you lowball, people might just say, no, we don't want to work with you, or they have another offer that's more attractive. So that does happen. Note, so if you send an offer and it's been received, but it has not been replied to, so they haven't accepted or counter offered, you can rescind your offer. So there are rules of how it needs to be rescinded properly, but just so you know, if something comes up in that time period, you can take it back as long as they have not accepted or countered. So just so you know. Now, if you receive a counter offer, you can choose to accept it and not make any changes. And if you do accept it, essentially you're getting a contract back with those crossed out things and the seller's initials. So what you do is initial next to that. And that's you accepting their changes, and that accepts the offer essentially. But say if their counter offer has something you don't like, then you can come back with another counter offer and change the terms and send it back to them. So you can go back and forth as long as you want. I've had offers that look like patchwork quilts by the end of it, and that happens. So you can do that, or you can decline their counter offers. So if it looks like it's just not going to come together, you can do that as well and just move on and find a different property. And yes, that happens as well. So, and again, if it expires on your side, we can't revive a dead offer. So that's why if you get a counter offer and you really want that property, you want to be on top of responding in time, because if it expires, you can't just go back and say, okay, we want to accept it. No. So the sellers can just walk away and they might get another offer in the meantime. So It all depends on the scenario at hand, but that can happen. So yeah, and the other thing is, I wanted to mention, just so you know, that if the seller sends you a counter offer and you decline it, the seller cannot then go back and accept your first offer. So your first offer is gone, it's dead, and the offer is the counter offer. So if that's not accepted, the deal is done, and they cannot then renege and go back to what you first offered. So just so you know, them's the rules. Okay. So ideally, if your offer is accepted, what happens is, so if you had no subjects, if you were unconditional, say in a bidding war where it's just like if they accept the offer, it's accepted and it's a pending deal basically, you would pay your deposit per the terms of the contract. So typically it's a couple business days. So we would discuss that. I'd send you instructions for that. But during this time, we also have the home buyer's rescission period. So you have to calculate the dates because holidays don't count, but it's about 3 days that you have to back out. And if you do that, you'd have to pay the rescission fee, which is nominal, but it compensates the seller for you tying up their property. But that rule could change. So basically, if it's unconditional, you're paying a deposit and that house is yours to purchase. The other one is if you have conditions, which is more common. And so that means you're moving on to doing things like property inspections and getting your mortgage broker to look at the finances to get that approval going. And that time frame is typically 7 to 10 business days, mainly because the lenders take the longest to get their approvals done. But again, I will coach you on all those types of things, and that's for a different time. I'm not going to go into subject removals right now. But so basically, yes, if that's accepted, those are your two routes, depending on if you have conditions. And after that, if you go through your subject removals and everything looks good, then you would remove subjects and you could pay your deposit just like the unconditional offer. Also, if you have a property inspection and it doesn't go well and there's something big that's worthy of walking away over, you can go back to the seller and negotiate perhaps a price reduction or add in a clause that would say that they would fix whatever issues are happening. And then you can remove subjects and pay your deposit. Okay, and one note on these offers is that if you go unconditional or you are unconditional and you pay a deposit, that's a pending deal. So if you back out on that, just not to scare you, but I want to scare you a little. Most of the time, if you back out of a pending deal, you are liable to give the seller your deposit. So that could be, $30,000 or $40,000. So just so you know, when you remove subjects and you're committing to buying this property, you're almost guaranteed to lose your deposit if you walk away. And you don't see it very often. It's very uncommon. I've never had that happen in my whole career, but it can happen. And that's mostly what the courts will rule is you lose your deposit. So FYI. Anyways, that is what I've got for you. I hope that's helpful. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. This is just a really quick, like, if this, then that, that's what happens. So happy to answer any questions or walk through things more in detail. If you're my client, I do have separate resources for looking at the actual contract of purchase and sale, but I'm not going to include it in here. So anyways, get in touch if you need me, and hopefully that helps. Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye.